like to welcome everyone to a group of agents from Remax Executive Realty sitting down and talking about the marketplace. My normal disclaimer, this is the opinions of the folks on the call and not necessarily that of Remax Executive Realty, Remax LLC, Remax Worldwide, or affiliates.
Well done, Gary.
We are here on June 8th. This is in Massachusetts, the beginning of phase 2, which means we'll be able to all go out and have lunch afterwards, provided we stay apart from each other. I'd like to introduce the folks that are on the session today. In my screen, top right is Andy Paleologos. Andy, why don't you say a few words?
Hi, guys. It's so nice to be a part of this panel. I think it's great to be able to share what we know, see what's going on, help everybody sort of understand what's happening trend-wise in the market, especially with all the stuff going on. My name's Andy Paleologos. I'm with the Tadaro team here in Franklin, Massachusetts. And I'm looking forward to this. This should be fun.
Next is Lisa Shaw. Lisa, say a few words.
Hi, everybody. Good to be on the panel as well. Excited to talk to you guys and share what our experiences have been going through all of this COVID-19. And just happy to have some nice weather that we can all enjoy.
Well said, Lisa.
Time for me to put on my mask. Next is Chris, and the last but not least.
Well, thank you. Hello, guys. Hello, everyone. Thank you. Very happy to be here. I'm one of the broker owners at Remax Executive Realty, and looking forward to talking a little bit about the market. We've seen some changes, and we'll get to a lot of that. So happy to be here. Thank you, Gary.
I'm Gary Kelley. I just wanted to welcome everyone who is sitting in around the world. We've got some viewers already tied in. That's good. So here's a simple question. Number one question we all get asked in real estate all the time. Hey, how's the market? Who wants to take that one?
I'm happy to take it. The market is excellent here, especially if you're a seller. I haven't seen prices and bidding wars and just this kind of craziness since 2005, which was the peak of our market here in Worcester County. Normally we would have a huge April and May, and that didn't really turn out like that. But right now, working with buyers and sellers is a very challenging balance as far as, is it a good time to sell? Yes, of course, it's a great time to sell. But where are you going? Are you going to a house that you already own? Because if then you're going to turn around and buy, there's some logistics that you need to work with there. So the market for my buyers is stressful. We're dealing with multiple offers on almost everything we put offers in on right now. So Worcester, I find Worcester, the actual proper city, just ridiculous. People are getting 30, 40 offers on properties, and the sweet spot seems to be in the like 275 to 350 range. And it's crazy. It's very competitive, and the inventory is low. So it takes some very aggressive buyers and some agents that can really lead their clients.
Andy, how about in your corner of the world?
Well, my little corner of the world is similar to what Lisa's describing. I'll tell you, Gary, the thing in prep for this, I wanted to do a little bit of sort of reflecting on when COVID started, right? And sort of everybody saw everything come to a cataclysmic halt for a short period of time. But I do stress short period of time because looking at all the metrics, and I know that you're going to maybe share some graphs and stuff, but what I've come to the conclusion is that, COVID, and if you want to include the most recent stuff that's going on, racial tumult and all that, what it has done is it's essentially disrupted the rhythm of the market, but it has not disrupted the values. The rhythm meaning everything kind of went on lockdown for a little bit, and we saw a shift where the normal, like Lisa was saying, the normal sort of, turn of the calendar, January 15 all the way through, say, April, right? Where we would see a steady incline of activity, showings, pendings, closes. That has just pivoted. It's sort of been, the rhythm was disrupted, and that entire module of time just got shifted. So now we're seeing the same trends that we would normally see during the uptick in the spring market. We're just seeing it now on the back end of the spring and into the summer. So that's encouraging. Values are steady. The year-over-year numbers that I'm seeing are still increasing modestly, no decreases. So one of the things that we may want to touch on as a foursome here is sometimes we'll hear buyers say, "Hey, is now the time where I can get a deal?" Nope,
Not so much.
Ain't happening. So that's my take on it all. But I love that you put together kind of a foursome here that runs a little bit more of the geography, the wider geography, because it does sort of provide some consensus on the trends that are happening consistently across Massachusetts.
I did pull together some charts for this, and I'm going to throw one up because I think it really tells a story of, the black line being where we were last year, the 2019 average, and then you can see how, and this is just simply requests for showings. You could argue whether it's the best metric or not, but it's certainly one that is interesting. It just really shows how there was a dip and we're back. And so that, I think, is the important message, is that there was a trough, no question about it. There were people that just didn't want to go out, didn't want to do anything. And now it's like, come on, folks, we're going to put a mask on, we're going to put gloves on, we're going to sanitize, or as I like to say, we're going to stay sanitized, and then we're going to run out and look at things. So, Chris, what are you saying?
So, Gary, thank you. And I would agree with both Andy and Lisa as far as what they said. I'll give a little bit more of an overall company standpoint, what we're seeing across all of the offices and across all of Metro West. And definitely a strong seller's market. Low rates are still helping the buyers get out there. There's a little bit less of them. And as Andy had alluded to, I think we've seen, the term that we've often heard is a bump from the spring market pushing out to the summer. I think we're seeing a little bit of that as well. A couple factors here. The processes and procedures that realtors have put in place to deal with COVID, I think, have been tremendously well received. And I credit all of the agents who have been doing the right thing, keeping the client safe, keeping the consumer safe. And that has given people, I think, a sense of confidence, because as you know, any economy is based upon consumer confidence, right? So we're seeing some consumer confidence. People are okay to get out there and see what's going on in the market. I think that's a huge part of it. And that bump from the spring to the summer, I think, is absolutely true. I think we're seeing folks who were maybe going to do something in March and April who decided not to are now starting to come out, and we're starting to see that to a higher degree. From a company standpoint, most companies are running between 50 and 70%. We are at about the same, which gives us some real confidence, because we had budgeted for well below that, thinking that this may prolong or we may not see a rebound in the market, but we have seen that rebound thus far, and our numbers are up because of it. So some confidence there from the company side as well, in addition to the consumers. So that's what kind of we've been seeing, in my opinion. And
so one of the things that I think is interesting to look at is how many homes are for sale. And this is a chart that shows for the last 4 years how many homes were for sale on Saturday. And yellow happens to be this year. And you can see that we are dramatically lagging where we've been in the past, which I think may be driving some of what Lisa mentioned before about multiple offers, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
What are you telling sellers now when they come to you and say, what do you think I should do? Are we too late in the market, et cetera?
It's a case-by-case basis on my end. That's sort of the rule of thumb moving forward with any seller. But right now, there's just a heck of a lot more cautiousness on the part of many sellers. They're still wondering if they should be dipping their toes in the water. I'll tell you, the consistent theme that Tammy and I share with our clients is that while it is all personal and it's a personal decision whether or not to move forward, our job is to provide guidance and counsel on when you can maximize the return on selling your home and therefore move on with a great parachute, right? And we keep telling people, pull that ripcord, because the parachute looks real healthy right now. The opportunity sellers still have to sell their home at a premium under really beneficial terms is still at an all-time high. So for those sellers who are willing to sort of absorb the counsel that we're giving them, and also are willing to let us employ the tactics that we're using, to use your what you alluded to, Chris, what we're doing as agents to make sure things are safe, staying sanitized, Gary, and doing all those things, it's working. I mean, it has changed a little bit in sort of how we do things as agents, right? So, I mean, where those really wonderful opportunities to have open houses to cram as many people as you can in a short amount of time could generate a lot of activity and interest, and potentially foster some multiple offer situations. Well, those aren't happening anymore, but that energy is still existing with different tactics. So, we can still have a open house. I don't like to call them that anymore, but what it is a dedicated, specific 2-hour, 3-hour block where people slot in exclusive showings, and those are filling up. So people are still seeing turnover. When they come to the property, they're seeing one person leaving and one person coming in, one person leaving, one person coming in, and it's still just as powerful. So, I think there are a lot of things that are happening now that realtors are needing to employ that I think are going to be mainstays moving forward after COVID. I think that there's some best practices out there that we've been forced to realize, but now we're welcoming with open arms.
I know that I put virtual tours on all of my listings now, whether they're rentals or not. And I think that that's just going to be something that isn't a bad thing. You bring it forward and all that. Lisa, how about in your world?
I agree with a lot of what Andy said, probably all of what Andy said. We are seeing...
I'll get you your check next week, Lisa.
And it doesn't happen often, and I agree with all of what he said.
Cheers.
But yes, I actually think this is going to bring about some good opportunities for us and our clients, as far as some changes that probably we could have made long ago that might not have been so openly seen. But the fact that we're doing open house style showings, I feel like that's such a more convenient way for my sellers to handle things. And you're not sitting at open houses for a couple hours thinking, is anybody going to come? With the low inventory, obviously that probably wouldn't happen anyways. But because we have scheduling these in 15-minute blocks, I feel like it's working very well for my sellers. I mean, clients with kids having to get out of their house 2 or 3 times a day, 2 or 3 times a week is really not convenient and not conducive to their lifestyles. Yeah. I mean, it really is just a pain in the butt sometimes. So I think things like that. I also feel like the precautions we've taken, I almost feel like maybe it's something that we kind of overlooked in the past that shouldn't have been being overlooked. I'm leaving an open house, per se. That's what we're calling it, but and I'm wiping down everything. Like, we didn't do that before, but really, if you think about it, we should have been doing that before. Like, we just had 20 strangers through your house touching all your stuff. The hands-off showings. Like, why aren't we doing that anyways? That's strangers shouldn't be walking through other people's houses, opening all kinds of things and touching all their stuff. I mean, realistically, I actually feel really good when I leave my clients' houses now. I've made everybody take their shoes off at the door. I say, if you want anything opened, I'm happy to open to you. I'm accompanying almost everything I can accompany unless there's a conflict of schedule. And I just feel like it's a much better service to my clients. And I'm proud to offer it. And, I see other agents and they're like, oh my God, you've got I have a whole cart of supplies with me. If somebody doesn't have a mask or if they don't have gloves, I've got, 4 or 5 buckets of sanitizer and some wipes so I can wipe everything down. And I feel like, it right in line with what Andy said, that is giving our clients, especially at RE/MAX Executive, because we are handling it like this, it's given them a good sense of confidence.
You almost said that you were hands-on, but you can't now because you got gloves and sanitizer.
No such thing as hands-on anymore.
No, hands-off agent.
Lisa, I always get a kick out of the fact that it took a global pandemic to remind people to wash their hands. So to your point, I think a lot of what you said is accurate and will be long lasting, and probably things that we overlooked in the past that maybe we shouldn't have. These factors I think are going to continue. And also, let's be honest, global pandemics don't just disappear even when we get back to life as normal. This is going to be sticking around for a while, just in some form or iteration. So a lot of those practices, as you and Andy had alluded to, are going to continue, I think.
Who here misses just shaking hands with people, though? I mean, that's one thing that I
do.
actually do miss.
I do too.
I do.
So it's making us sort of be a little bit more creative in how we, sidle up to somebody and sort of get to know them a little bit. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
It's a sea change. I mean, it's very interesting, and we'll see how that evolves over time. But it's funny when dad taught me, son, you make good eye contact, you extend your hand, you give him a firm handshake.
Yeah.
Well, crap, Dad, what do I do now? Do I just, it's
Firm
just one of
wave.
those things.
A little smart.
Right.
I did an open house yesterday and allowed people into the house as long as the number of 10 wasn't hit. And basically, I sat there and I said to people, okay, we're letting multiple people into the house. You got to remember what you were taught in elementary school. Stay away from each other, respect each other's stuff, don't touch anything, and respect their space. And people, they underneath their mask, they smiled, they got it, but it worked out fine. And yes, afterwards, did I go through the house and wipe it down? Yes. I don't consider myself a professional house sanitizer.
No.
Give it a best shot. So I think that those things are important to everyone.
Agreed, Gary.
They are.
100%.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're finding with some folks because of the superheated market is that they are putting in offers, and then sometimes the offers are not coming to pass because of financing. Are you seeing any changes in the way financing is happening or the way approvals, et cetera, are going down right now?
As a list agent, I'll tell you one thing, Gary. That's a phenomenal point to bring up. As a listing agent, man, when I'm talking to buyer's agents who are interested in submitting offers on one of our properties, one of the first questions I'm asking them is, have you had a direct conversation with your client's loan officer so that more importantly than anybody else, but so that a realistic timeline to get things closed? And then I find that it ends up being a 5 to 10 minute education for another buyer's agent, because we are trying to lead from the front here with this company about, guys, we meet regularly with a lot of the loan officers that we tend to do a lot of business with, and the advice is consistent. Because there is so much more that these loan officers and the underwriting departments have to do to clear someone's loan, especially towards the back end. Additional phone calls to vet employment, additional checks on credit history, that they need more time. So do not try to secure a property with a 30-day close if you know damn well that's not going to happen. So there's opportunity there as well to educate our seller clients as well to don't expect a 30-day close. It's different now. 45, 60 days is a norm, and we need to understand that. So that's what I'm seeing that, Gary.
I'm also finding pre-approvals that were from, let's say, a couple of months ago, still valid on the dates, that perhaps the person was furloughed and they may be back to work, but they may not be back to work at the same hourly rate or the same number of hours.
That's right.
That becomes scary for a seller as well. Lisa, I think you're going to say something.
No, just agreeing with you. But that's absolutely more of a concern now than it's ever been before, where where especially if they're coming to you with an approval that's, more than a week old. I'm pretty much having them update their approval as we put in an offer, because I want to make sure that, we're not making some promises to a seller that we can't. I have a very good reputation in Worcester County, and I don't want that to. So being in touch with the mortgage lender or seeing a pre-approval come across your desk that is from somebody that you've done business with before gives you a much better sense of security for your buyers and for the seller. So that's definitely really big right now.
Yeah, Lisa, you make a good point there with the familiarity with the lender. I think that is an important factor in business in general, but definitely now to give that listing agent some confidence or vice versa. we're seeing a lot more overlays too, Gary, from the mortgage companies, and we're seeing employment verification on the day of close. So there's also now even a second level of credit that they're checking. They have credit committees with some of these lenders that the application has to go through an additional process after the commitment. So banks have definitely tightened up in regards to what's been happening.
So what are you telling buyers now? We've been talking a lot about sellers and the things sellers need to worry about. What do you say to your buyers?
Well,
Come in strong.
go ahead, Lise. Yeah, I don't want to step over you.
That's it. Just come in strong.
Yeah, you summed it up in probably a 10-minute thing that I was going to say, so I won't even go into a huge diatribe about it. But but it's so true. I mean, even
It's tough.
guys, even last fall, right? I mean, I'm sure everybody's seen the same thing. Come in strong, sure, but we didn't pull that weapon out of our tool belt maybe until after the first counter, right? So with buyers, it's like, guys, do not mess around. And, you can't do it. There's number one, do not even come knocking on my door and tell me that one of you can come and look at the property. Both of you need to come and look at the property, right? A good listing agent is going to come right back if we submit an offer on behalf of some clients, or husband and wife or whatever. And they're going to say, well, did both people see the property?
Right.
Perfectly legitimate question, right? So if we are disarmed and we have to say to them, no, actually, just the wife saw it and the husband is still waiting to see it, he'll see it at home inspection. Yeah, that's not going to fly.
No.
So not only do they have to act with a sense of urgency on the front end and seeing the property, they need to act with an extreme sense of urgency on how they're submitting their offer, right? So we're providing counsel on, guys, what's your walkaway number? Figure it out right now, because you need to come strong or don't come at all. And you're going to know quicker that way. So if you don't get the property, you can move on to something else, but you're going to give it your best shot. So it becomes a very deep responsibility on the behalf of a buyer's agent, right? If we're representing buyer clients, we really have to do, if we haven't in the past, we're doing them now. We have to do those buyer CMAs to make sure that they know exactly what's going on with the sold comparisons, so we can help educate them on what their walkaway number could be. It's ultimately their decision, of course, but you can't have any wiggle room and gray area. It's just, there's no time to fool around.
No, that's a good point, Andy.
One of the things we're telling people also is to be agile. If you see something come on the market today, don't wait for the open house. Let's get in it now. Let's get in, get through it, and you either love it, we're going to offer on it, or you don't love it and you're going to sleep on it and see if it's in your mind in the morning, recognizing that in a superheated market, it may not be there, and make peace with the fact that you're taking that time. But we are definitely telling people to be agile at this point.
And being aggressive in a market like this is also very important, as you had just alluded to. That home may not be there in the morning after you've kind of thought about it overnight. We're also seeing, Gary, with buyers, some sweet spots. Lisa had referenced one in Worcester County, and just across Massachusetts, that $400,000 to $600,000 range is going like hotcakes. It's a really, really hot price point that we have, and that's fairly typical, I think, of most markets, but this market in particular, it's been crazy. In addition to the advent of folks leaving the city, coming out more toward the suburbs and to more rural areas for more space. I think the pandemic has forced that upon a lot of folks, looking for in-laws and looking for homes with pools and looking for homes with home offices. So those are some hot trends that we're also seeing just in general. Absolutely, because of what's happening. Yeah. It's been remarkable, some of the calls we've gotten, Gary, as an office and as a company. Folks calling from Brighton, Arlington, Cambridge, Alston, areas that they were happy to live in for a time period there. Asking if we have any rentals, paying up to $6,000 a month, even for a 4 to 6 months rental, just to get out of the city. So,
it's funny. We have a seller in Southborough that has his house off the market right now while he does some improvements, some bathroom remodels, whatever, which was part of their strategy. And in speaking with him this morning, he says, I'm not sure I want to move into Boston now. That was their plan. He says, I'm not sure I want to go west, go to the Berkshires, something like that. He says the whole idea of, living close to where I work and everything. He says that used to be important, but we've figured out a game changer of working from home.
You know,
Yeah.
I had this conversation, was it a couple of days ago? Yeah, with somebody that we were directly showing one of our listings. I think this was a couple of days ago. It was so fascinating to have this kind of conversation. But if you think of this as on a more macro level, right, and you see the urban flight and things like that you're talking about, Chris, you know what it's also doing is it's pushing the envelope to create massive protocol change on how companies are viewing work-life balance. It is so interesting to me because you're seeing a lot of these companies now realize that, well, the world didn't fall apart because we had 60% of our employees working from home. In fact, they got their work done. And in fact, maybe it was done better. I don't know. But you know what's very interesting about that is that you may end up seeing over a period of 5, 10, 15 years, this just is fascinating to me, but you may end up seeing how it affects how schools are funded with property taxes, because if people were migrating more towards spots in the state that allowed them physical access to their brick and mortar company, and that was the key trigger for moving to a certain town, and that had a direct impact on what the quality of the schools were in those towns, right? If you take away the barrier to needing to be in a physical brick and mortar location, what kind of impact does that have on how schools are funded? Because people are more disparate and they don't care necessarily about what zip code they're living in, because they know they're going to be able to work from home. You might see a total destabilization of urban areas in general becoming the focal point and the locus for all of these major companies. And they're going to be, knowing that their employees can work anywhere, not as concerned about being in Boston proper, but they could go to Marlborough, they could go to Framingham, they could go to Franklin, they could go to Worcester, and it's not going to matter. So think about the trickle-down effect on what that's going to have on schools and all those types of things. It's going to be fascinating to see all that. I know it's a little bit of a side tangent, Gary, but it was.
Normally I would say what Andy said, but I got to think about what Andy just said.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I do want to put up another chart. This shows the pending sales of homes right now in Massachusetts. And I look at that and say pending sales are kind of getting back to where they would normally be in the past. Combining that with the lack of inventory, it tells a story. And the story is, from my perspective, real estate's still happening. It's happening at a frantic pace. If people are on the bubble about whether to sell or not, and they can get their heads around the safety issues and concerns, now's a great time. And if you're a buyer, you got to be aggressive. You have to be assertive, and you have to be in the game.
Yep.
Yes, agreed.
So we've been yapping for about half an hour now. Any closing thoughts from anyone on the panel? I'll start with Lisa.
I guess there's a silver lining to everything. You know, things happen for a reason. And I think that being one of the forerunners in the market, as RE/MAX Executive has always been, has held us to higher levels, higher standards. I think this is just, it's so pronounced now. You can see that, yes, there was a lull when everybody was in pure panic mode, and we stayed the course. We did what we always do. We did what we know. We did what we're good at. And now we're right back on track where we should be. So I feel like that gives all of our clients a level of confidence that is really important.
Andy, parting comment?
No, I've talked too much.
I think that the idea is real estate's still there. It hasn't stopped. It's still strong. Great time to sell, etc. Chris, broker owner, final words.
Final word. I think real estate typically or historically has been the trailer in the market. I think it's going to be the trailblazer in this market. I truly think it's going to pull the rest of the economy with it. And I think that bodes well for those in the market and those who want to get into the market. So buckle up.
Buckle up.
Yeah.
All right.
It's going to be a fun ride.
My parting words are, as always these days, stay sanitized.
sanitized.
Thanks for sitting in as to the panelists, and thanks to our viewers. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.